Good afternoon, and thank you all for joining us. I'm Justin Nelson, co-founder and president here at NGLCC. I use he, him pronouns, and I'm thrilled to be celebrating LGBTQ History Month and National Book Month. We are so excited about today's program and the opportunity to showcase some of the incredible authors in the NGLCC network. Authors that are a vital part of LGBTQ history, capturing our experiences and telling the stories of our community. These talented writers and storytellers have shared their journey with us, and we are so proud to now share their stories with you. I hope you enjoy the program.
I'm Brian Gorman, and my pronouns are he, him, and his. My business, TransformingLives.Coach, is a certified LGBT business enterprise, and I'm an author. When I crossed the 60-year-old threshold, I committed to paying it forward by speaking, writing, and a number of other things. And on the writing front, I now have 24 articles on Forbes Coaches Council Online. And perhaps my proudest writing is a chapter in the digital version of Springer International's Handbook of Personal and Organizational Transformation. The Hero and the Sherpa is a guide to helping people successfully move through the most difficult changes in their lives. I'm now working on translating that into a full-fledged book specifically addressed to entrepreneurs and small business owners.
This is Jerry Valentine, and I have a question for you. Why is it that adversity causes some people to break and others to break records? That's a question I examine in my new best-selling book, The Thriving Mindset: Tools for Empowerment in a Disruptive World. In the book, I talk about my own background in dealing with disruption, about growing up as an African-American gay man in a very low-income part of New York City, and ultimately going on to earn an Ivy League degree, an MBA, and to have a successful corporate career. Today, I run my own business, and I use the tools that I learned in order to help my clients. They're also the tools I talk about in the book, where I give day-to-day practices you can put into place to start turning your own disruption into your advantage and to become one of those people who goes on to break records. You can use this book to excel in your own career, to lead your own company through disruption, and to help people who may work for you learn how to thrive in the face of disruption. You can find my book on Amazon by searching for The Thriving Mindset: Tools for Empowerment in a Disruptive World. You can also find my book on my website, jerryvalentine.com.
Hey everyone, I'm Keith Newhouse. I'm honored to be taking part in LGBTQ History Month as well as National Book Month. I'm the owner of Newhouse Creative Group, a small publishing company that I run locally with my dad. We have about 16 authors at this point and over 40 books, including my own book, My Tio's Pulse. When the Pulse tragedy occurred, I wanted a way to help out and give back. So I started the My Tio's Pulse project. I never imagined what the project would become though. By the time we launched, we had over 40 volunteers all donating their time, talent, and services, including 22 artists who created gorgeous illustrations for the book, and a psychotherapist who gave us the words to tell children what happened at the Pulse tragedy, how to cope with it, and how to feel safe after a tragedy like Pulse. We were even asked to headline at Pride by the Pride Committee, with Miss Sammy reading the book at the amphitheater. It was such an incredible project, and I'm so thankful for all those involved who made it happen. I'm also thrilled to announce that we're officially partnered now with the One Pulse Foundation. So all purchases of the book, all profits go back to the One Pulse Foundation. It will be on sale at the museum and the memorial. But if you're interested in making a purchase now, you can buy from newhousecreativegroup.com or from Amazon.
We've all dealt with the feeling of loneliness. We've all dealt with acceptance, responsibility, duty, the crushing blow of failure, and the jubilation of success. These are some of humanity's strongest emotions, and also are a few of the themes of my book, Short Stories of Quesrian, Volume 1. That's Quesrian spelled Q-U-E-S-R-I-A-N. My name is Isaac James, and in my journey through writing and through life, I've had encounters that reflect some of the characters of my stories. My writing takes my readers into a fantasy world with breathtaking locations and spectacular creatures and characters that can do amazing things. Magic and sword fighting and adventure and mystery. But with all the wonder of a magical world, my characters still have to deal with their everyday experiences and everyday emotions, for better or for worse. With several of my characters, I have a general theme of isolation or a sense of being judged or misunderstood. These are feelings that I'm very familiar with and just seem like a natural expression for me to put into my characters and their lives. Self-acceptance and acceptance of your condition is an important theme for me, especially in short stories of Equestrian. Everyone has a whole variety of experiences that are entirely relevant to them, and I try my best to translate my experiences to my pages. Through all our struggles of doubt and all of our hardships, I think it's important to remember that these moments are our stories. Every emotion can lead to a story.
Hey there, my name is Chad Peavy. I'm the author of Break and Untangle, Discover the Freedom to Be You Despite the Inherited Mindsets Holding You Back. I wrote the book to chronicle my life, my journey of growing up a gay kid in rural Arkansas with an ill-equipped mom who was young and didn't really know a lot about being a mom, and a father who abused me both physically and emotionally. And I was being raised in a fundamentalist Christian environment, a really tough place for a young gay kid to be growing up. And I talk about the book, the scars that created, and the scars that I carried into adulthood, and learning how to take those survival skills that I learned and turn them into skills that would allow me to thrive. Because the survival skills that I learned weren't just holding me back, they were sabotaging me in my ability to create a life that I wanted for myself, and feeling more alive and feeling more vitality and being able to love more deeply and connect more meaningfully. And so I had to learn a different way of looking at the world, create a different mindset, a different framework that I could exist. And so that's what I talk about in the book. I talk about 3 different ways that I do that, 3 different categories. The first is self, understanding how my history is impacting how I'm showing up in the world. I talk about strategies that I had to implement in my life that would allow me to thrive. And finally, I talk about the social part of us, our interconnectedness, and the ways that we create a legacy and live with intention and live consequentially. So that's the book. That's what I talk about. It's so cool that you guys are doing this featuring gay authors. I really appreciate the opportunity to be considered. And thanks so much for all that you do.
Hi, I'm Rob Volpe. I'm the founder and CEO of Ignite 360. We're an insights and strategy firm and also an LGBTBE business. I'm also the proud first-time author of Tell Me More About That, Solving the Empathy Crisis One Conversation at a Time. I'm actually just finishing up the editing process. As you can tell, it's coming out February 22nd of 2022. Really excited about this. The book is a personal mission, personal journey of mine, but also has a lot of application for other people in that I help identify the 5 steps to empathy and help people learn how to be empathetic in the moment. Like, what are the things that you need to go through in order to achieve empathy with somebody else? All of that started for me back when I was a kid growing up in Indiana, and we had moved into a small town, and at 5th grade, 1980, other kids in the class decided, hey, he must be gay, let's pick on him. A survival skill that I developed then was to learn how to be empathetic and to navigate through and get along with everybody. As an adult then, that turned into my career doing insights, which is marketing research and talking to people and listening to people and understanding how they think and feel and helping my clients do the same thing. And while society has been clamoring for empathy, and you hear it all the time, we need to be more empathetic. What I noticed was that nobody was explaining exactly how to do it. Like, in the moment, what do you need to do to be empathetic? And I realized through self-reflection on my own experiences, I understood how to do that. And so I crafted the 5 steps to empathy, as I call them: dismantling your judgment, asking good questions, actively listening, integrating into understanding, and using solution imagination. It comes out February 22nd. It is available for pre-order on Amazon and Barnes & Noble and wherever else you buy books online.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thanks for joining today's program. My name is Lauren Schweppe. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm our Director of Programs and Stakeholder Advocacy here at NGLCC. I am so excited to introduce the next part of our program, which is an expert panel featuring 3 amazing authors and LGBTQ leaders in the NGLCC network. The panel features Ashley Brundage, author of Empowering Differences, Zaylor Stout, author of Our Gay History in 50 States, and Gabrielle Claiborne, author of Embrace Your Truth, A Journey of Authenticity. But before I turn it over to our experts, I want to remind you all to be sure to stick around after the panel, as we will hear from some more of our suppliers, as well as a fireside chat with athlete, author, and activist Skylar Baylor. And finally, afterwards, we'll have a live Meet the Authors Q&A event where you will have the opportunity to network and interact with some of today's featured authors. But without further ado, I'd like to now turn things over to our moderator for today's panel, the incredible Deborah Quade, Supplier Diversity Manager at Kellogg. Deborah, over to you.
Thanks, Lauren, and good afternoon and welcome to our first annual celebration of National Book Month. It's my pleasure to introduce our three panelists for this afternoon. All three are published authors and also certified LGBT BEs through NGLCC. Please help me welcome Ashley Brundage, author of Empowering Difference, Gabrielle Claiborne, author of Transformation Journeys Worldwide, and Zaylor Stout, author of Our Gay History in 50 States. Let's begin our conversation with Ashley. Please tell us a bit about yourself, about your work, who you are as an author, and what led you to the topic of empowering differences.
Thank you so much, Deborah, and I'm honored to be here and share a little bit about empowering differences, but it's a 4-step process to empower your differences. And step 1 is to know yourself. And I built a self-assessment to really help readers connect with all of their differences and their comfort zone and their privilege and their empowerment. And step 2 is to know others. And that really connects with learning about intersectionality and privilege and how we all have these differences and they need different type of empowerment. Step 3 is to develop that strategy, and you'll develop that strategy when you engage and read that book and connect. And then the last step is to take empowering actions to impact your community. And so thank you to everyone in the NGLCC network, because you all take empowering actions every day to provide economic empowerment for our community members. And it truly makes a difference. And it's what inspired me to be able to capture the work that I did to write this book. And it also really helped to inspire me to want to be certified as an LGBT BE for my company, and to continue to advocate for others to do the same thing and get their business certified. So it's that constant circle of empowerment. And so I'm excited to be here. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ashley, and thanks for the shout out to our wonderful support network with NGLCC. We really are a family. Gabrielle, I could ask you the same. Please share some information about yourself, a little bit about your journey, and how you came to write about this topic.
Yeah, thank you, Deborah. And I'm so excited about being with you and all these amazing authors here in this conversation today. My name is Gabrielle Claiborne, and my pronouns are she, her, and hers. I am co-founder and CEO of Transformation Journeys Worldwide, and we're an inclusion training and consulting firm with a transgender focus. And early on in my journey of authenticity, by the way, the name of my book is A Journey of Authenticity, Embrace Your Truth, A Journey of Authenticity. And early on in my journey, as I was embarking on my journey of authenticity, I was always looking for, what is mine to do? How do I want to show up in this world? And I know that, this conversation is not just for trans or LGBTQ individuals. This is a conversation that is much broader than that demographic. So it's everyone's invitation to show up authentically. So what really compelled me to write my book was, one, making sure that I shared my story and my keys so that people would understand, what the trans experience, what a trans experience can look like, and also as an invitation to others to embrace their own truth, whatever that looks like. So in my book, I talk about the 7 spiritual insights or lessons learned that I had to embrace along my journey of authenticity. Things like learning to listen to my heart, learning to love myself, learning to be prepared for pushback, understanding the importance of forgiveness and in coming to terms with our past, and then finally stepping into that place of living a purposeful life. And I love what Ashley just said about, how you can come to terms or find who you are meant to be, and understanding that authenticity is not a destination, authenticity is a journey. So my book is kind of an invitation to the reader to say, what is your heart calling you forth to embrace as it relates to your truth? So that's kind of why I wrote it, and hopefully my story is able to inspire others to embrace their own truth in their journey.
I love the fact that you emphasize the fact that we each have unique journeys and unique truths, and that you're sharing yours in an effort to support the rest of us on ours. So I'm already excited. This just keeps getting better. Zaylor, please tell us a bit about yourself and what led you to want to share your discoveries. And I mean, all 50 states. It's so exciting. It's such a great book. Please.
Thank you. No, thank you so much, Deborah, for all your support throughout this whole process. I feel like I'm here with all my friends because Ashley was there at my book launch, and Gabrielle, dear friend, was there as well. So Zaylor Stout, I'm the founder of Zaylor Stout & Associates, which is an employment law firm with locations in both Minneapolis, Minnesota, as well as Pasadena, California. But as I became a member of NGLCC and got my law practice certified, an opportunity came up where it reminded me of this road trip that I was on, and was traveling through different states and got into Wyoming, and of course thought about Matthew Shepard, and wanted to lay flowers at the fence where he was beat and left for dead. And years later, I ended up speaking at a National Coming Out Day luncheon and ended up meeting Dennis and Judy Shepard, because Judy was the keynote speaker there. And it was really hard for her to get through her comments that day because it was the 19th anniversary of Matthew's passing. And it reminded me that, if this straight heterosexual couple can, cisgender couple can do all of this and live through the worst day of their life every single day for 19 years, for me and my community, that I needed to do more. So I remembered this book idea that I had, and I met with a publisher within 2 weeks, started writing the book in 2 months, and 2 years later, Our Gay History in 50 States was born. And the focus and the purpose was really thinking about those LGBTQ kids that live in those conservative states and those conservative counties where they don't feel as though they belong, they don't feel as though anybody like them ever came from places like that. And I wanted to be able to show them that there have been amazing LGBT folks across this country that have made amazing contributions, and they've come from all corners of this country. And that you shouldn't have to feel as though you have to leave your home in order to fully be yourself. And I think the more that people have the ability to be able to learn about this history that we don't learn at home and we don't learn in school, that hopefully it provides, that beacon of hope for those LGBT kids out there that need some, especially with what's going on today and with today's politics, especially as it relates to trans and gender non-binary youth.
Well, thank you. And obviously it's a very personal story for all three of you. So we really appreciate sharing your innermost thoughts and motivations in writing your books with us. Zaylor, that kind of is the perfect segue to my next question, because what I think our audience would like to learn a bit more from all three of you is, what impact had you intended your book to have? When you first thought about your topic, how did you imagine the audience would be reacting?
All right. So for me, it was really thinking about those LGBT kids, right? And to provide them with some semblance of hope, because I remember going to the library as a kid and looking for any Black LGBT, anybody, in all these pages that they have there, and finding them, but really having to dig, really, especially with like the Harlem Renaissance and everything, and Langston Hughes and all of these folks, it wasn't stuff that was really out in the forefront. And so there's one in regard to the LGBT youth. Another one is for parents, right? I want to be able to prevent a parent from kicking their kids out of their home when they find out that they're LGBT, right? A lot of LGBT kids feel very lonely during growing up, thinking that they're the only ones. And so to be able to show that they are not and have not been the only ones, and to show their parents that they are not and have not been the only ones, I think is important. As well as the third part would be securing additional allies, right? So securing allies so that for our full equality, both in our individual communities that we are in, whether it be our work communities, our places of worship, our cities and our counties, but also under the law, right? From a federal and national perspective. And so as an attorney, I always pivot back to, the passage of the Equality Act and the importance of those different types of enactments to be able to show across the board that we're all equal.
Thank you. And Ashley, what impact did you hope for when publishing your book?
Yeah, I actually overcame harassment, discrimination, and homelessness in this journey of empowerment for me. And when I started to look at this process and I developed this assessment, I thought early on that it was a transgender superpower that we hold on to, our ability to have to recategorize our entire existence in this world. And, oh, is this person still a friend? Can this person still be your family? Can I still go to this establishment or restaurant or anywhere? And that's when I said, well, okay, these questions that we ask ourselves that are really connected to empowerment are just our superpower, the transgender community, but so many other different communities could really benefit from doing a holistic self-assessment analysis of where you fit into empowerment. So I said, wow, I guess I needed to take this a little bit bigger than just having it be for just my community, but let me make it about empowerment for all. And so I dove a lot deeper into my own research around the 10 most common differences that we hold as humans. And each one is highlighted in Empowering Your Differences because I really wanted to make those connection points. So the reader then could say, well, maybe it's not my transgender status that needs the most empowerment. Because for me, getting a job after fighting through discrimination as an out transgender person 11, 12 years ago was all connected into overcoming that difference. But once I started growing my career, that was no longer the difference that I held that needed the most empowerment. It was actually my educational background, having never gone to college. So I had to be really smart about empowerment. So I've been hearing a lot around how my users of my platform that I built and the readers of my book to really connect with their differences, all of them, and utilize each difference strategically and then take action. Because if they do that, they'll be able to have growth in their career, growth in their personal life. And then they'll be able to really see the differences being made through their differences. And that's kind of the genesis of this. And what I was hoping to gain ultimately at the end of the day was empowerment for all through all of our differences.
Our differences and the fact that each of us is so completely unique. And your platform definitely helps people on that journey. Gabrielle, same question. What impact were you hoping to have on readers?
I love this question. And I really feel like one of our superpowers, all of our superpowers, and Z and Ashley have already talked about this, and that is our visibility. I think the more we are visible in the world, that we not only normalize, and I use that word figuratively, I really kind of try to stay away from the word normal, but in this context, normalize our experiences as just another expression of the human experience. So it normalizes our existence in a culture that really struggles with our differences, to Ashley's point, but it becomes an invitation to those around us to say, okay, look at what this person has gone through in, in a short period of time in their life, embracing an aspect of their truth. If this individual can step into those courageous spaces, not knowing exactly the exact destination, and look how she's showing up, or look how we're showing up today, then that becomes an invitation to me as the reader that I need to understand, what is it about me what is it about my magnificence or my greatness that I need to step into, that I need to lean into, that perhaps, things from my past are holding me back, right? So I wanted my book to be an invitation to the reader to say, okay, what aspect of my greatness can come forth? And I tried to lay out, some of the steps that I took in my own journey, giving them not a roadmap per se, but kind of a perspective of what this could look like for an individual's life, and say, if I too can navigate what I've navigated, you too can navigate your journey of authenticity. A lot of times when I speak, and I actually reference this in my TED Talk, people come up to me and say, Gabrielle, you're so courageous. I can never do what you did. But the reality is we all have that capacity for courage. And we just need to be courageous enough to take that first scary step. That first scary step is often the most scariest. So once we take that first, the second, third, and fourth steps become easier. So hopefully my book is an invitation to the reader to take their own courageous steps.
Unfortunately, we have you as our trailblazer with your flashlight leading the way. So
I think I'm one voice of many.
I agree. I'm going to take this opportunity for a short break, and we will be right back. Thank you, everyone.
Hi, my name is Jennifer Brown, and I'm a certified LGBT business enterprise, LGBTBE, and I am a published author, so I wanted to share my second book, How to Be an Inclusive Leader. We do diversity, equity, and inclusion consulting for companies as Jennifer Brown Consulting, and I write and I speak on the same topic. And I'm just so honored to be out as an author and very proud as a member of the community and someone who I'm hoping is considered a thought leader in the books that I write and in the messages that I share, and especially sharing my personal journey of coming out and being out and bringing my full self to my role as a founder and a CEO and author and keynote speaker. So my big congratulations to all the other authors that are out there who are part of the community. It is so important that we tell our stories, and it's so important that we write books and get up on stages and make that brave choice to share about our lives and about how we are succeeding, because we need to show that it is possible in a way that perhaps some of us weren't shown that when we were younger, but we need to shine that light for future generations. So celebrating LGBTQ History Month, and very proud to be a member of the NGLCC and a certified LGBTQ BE. Thanks so much.
Hello to everyone at the National LGBT Chamber of Commerce. My name is Abdi Nazemian. I am a screenwriter and author, most recently of this book, Like a Love Story, which was the recipient of a Stonewall Honor. This novel is about three teenagers coming of age in New York City in 1989 and 1990 against the backdrop of the worst of the AIDS epidemic. It's a novel that is very much inspired by my own coming of age and by the coming of age of others in my generation. We weren't the generation that was on the front lines of the AIDS epidemic, but we also weren't young enough to be coming of age when treatment was available. And so we were growing up and realizing we were queer at a time when all we knew of the queer experience was fear and shame and stigma. And this book is about the journey from that fear and that shame and the stigma into love and connection and community. It's called Like a Love Story, but I've always thought of it more as a love letter to the activists who quite literally saved my life and many others, specifically ACT UP, who are a huge part of this book. It's a love letter to the artists who stood up for us and inspired me and so many others, specifically Madonna, who inspired the title. And it's a love letter to the queer community and to the power we have when we come together, as evidenced by the incredible achievements we made combating HIV/AIDS when few would stand with us. So yeah, it's a story I'm very proud of. I have had the experience of feeling the power of art through this book because of the way it's connected with readers, and I very much hope some of you check it out.
I'm Todd Weiler, Managing Partner and CEO of Blue Rose Consulting Group, a proud member of the NGLCC community. And I'm also an author of Untamed Equality. And that's what I'd like to talk to you about. When I speak of untamed equality, I'm talking about the next level, the power of diversity. It's not about being treated equally. It's not about the struggles that we've been through for recognition or fair treatment. It is truly about the vast power, the strength, the boundless influence of diversity on organizations, militaries, countries. And that's what this book is all about. It's from a perspective of my experiences, but also experiences of others. And even if you've just brushed up against the power of diversity, it can have an influence on your thought around the world, around how organizations should function and can function better. And frankly, if you don't believe me, just take a look at history. The ash heap of history is strewn with organizations, militaries, and even empires that have collapsed from their purest ideologies. I mean, even in fairly recent history, we have seen that 6-foot-tall white military forces don't fare too well in battle. So with that in mind, I hope that you will take the time with an open heart and an open mind to experience the power of the next step in untamed equality.
Hello, friends at the NGLCC and fellow LGBTBEs. My name is Bernadette Smith, and I'm here to tell you about my new book, Inclusive 360. I love this book. It just came out a few weeks ago, and through the editing process, and the writing process, I had to read it a whole bunch of times, and I'm not sick of it. I still like it, and I think it can really help your organization. I wrote this book to remove the overwhelm that I hear from really wonderful, well-meaning people who want to have a more diverse, equitable, and inclusive organization, but they don't know where to start. This book is designed for an individual to create their own DEI roadmap. It's like DIY DEI, and it's really designed to help folks get into action right away. The other thing that makes this book a little special is that it's a DEI book, not just about human resources. It's not exclusively about leadership, but it has solutions for every department. That's where the 360 comes in. So there's information about how to have inclusive product design, how to have inclusive meetings and events. It covers a whole lot of different topics, so you can move your organization forward in a holistic, aligned way, where all the different departments can work on DEI simultaneously with some really cool practical ideas.
Hello, I'm Bob Wittick. I'm the president and founder of Wittick Communications. Back in 2004, as Wittick Combs Communications, we were certified as an LGBTQ business enterprise by the National LGBT Chamber of Commerce, and we're very proud of that designation. Interestingly, the following year, 2 publishers approached us to author and present the very first book in the United States on gay marketing. We accepted a contract from Kaplan Publishing, and we published our book, Business Inside Out, and this has been in print, remained in print ever since. We're very proud of it. We think it tells a story, a history of the opening of the market, and actually speaks to the first 10 years of our mission when we were representing major corporations like American Airlines and IBM and Ford Motor Company. So this is the book that we think made its history, made its mark in our career, in our company, and I'm very proud to present it to you. Thank you.
Hey, I'm Dr. Sarah Skidmore, and I own Skidmore Consulting, and we are an LGBT business enterprise. And I am the author of Stronger People Leaders, and this is a leader development workbook that we use in a lot of the training programs and leader development programs offered by the business. I encourage you to go ahead and get a copy. It's available on Amazon. Thanks.
Hello, my name is Zaylor Stout, and I'm the author of Our Gay History in 50 States, an LGBTQI+ history book that tells the story of queer American history, state by state, showcasing significant people, places, and events. Our book launch happened just in time to commemorate the 50th anniversary of the historic Stonewall riots. Now, our goal is to get this book into every public school and library and learning center across the country. We believe this book is timely, given that California, New Jersey, Illinois, Colorado, Oregon, and Nevada now require the teaching of LGBT history in schools, while other states like New York and Massachusetts are poised to do the same. Our ask is that you purchase a copy for yourself, then gift another copy to a library, your old school, or an LGBT youth that you know. Buying a copy at gay50states.com means that 10% of your proceeds will go towards an LGBT nonprofit of your choice. Thank you.
So welcome back. And the next question is really for all of you. Did you self-publish? And if so, why?
So I'll jump in here. Yes, I did self-publish. And the reason that I self-published was for a couple of reasons. One, I didn't want the barrier of having a publisher to tell me that my work was worthwhile publishing to be a barrier for me. So I took the course of doing self-publishing. And I also did that for the reason that it allowed me to take control of how I wanted my message to come out. And, you know, publishing this book was, as I'm sure Ashley and Z can account to, this was like a journey in and of itself. And so navigating, you know, writing the script multiple times. And I'll never forget chapter 4 of my book. I rewrote it 4 times. And so, you know, knowing that I could self-publish allowed me the flexibility of leaning into the process, not feeling the pressure of a publisher saying that I have a deadline to meet or this is what this should look like. I wanted to have that control of what the end product looked like. So that's kind of why I self-published.
Thank you.
I'll jump in next. Thank you, Ashley. Mine was a hybrid. So I was a hybrid of self-publishing and using a publisher. I have a dear friend that owns an independent publishing company locally, and their focus is really on social justice type works and artists from marginalized groups where those stories aren't normally out there. And so I was able to lean in and focus on, you know, the writing and the research and coming up with the content for the book. But then I didn't have to worry about things like tracking down an illustrator that would be able to like show the message that I have in regard to this, and worry about tracking down, copywriters and folks are going to be able to proofread the book, and the person that does the book design. That is not my skill set. So I loved my setup where I was able to work and focus on and lean in the areas where I had my strengths, which is, I'm an attorney, I'm a researcher, I can do that, I can find the facts, and especially with wanting to have this be a book that, number one, it's not a book that's been out before, and this was prior to this this LGBT content boom that we're currently in. There weren't a lot of LGBT books out, especially one that focused on the history of each and every single state and big place. And then ensuring that it represented the true diversity of the communities that we know that we see, right? And those communities aren't always the communities that are shown on the news or in shows and things of that nature. Trans men aren't normally represented. Our Asian and Pacific Islander communities aren't normally represented. You have your intersex and asexual communities that aren't normally represented and spoken of, let alone, people of color. And so that's one of the things that I wanted to make sure was to have that creative process to be able to ensure that this was really a reflection. I mean, folks with disabilities, the list goes on and on, of the community that we really have. And kind of handing that over to a publisher, there may have been some concerns in regards to, well, there's these important figures that are members of your community that you're leaving out. And I'm like, I'm intentionally leaving them out because their stories have already been told. And there's only so much space within the pages of this book. And, I wanted to make sure that anybody that grabbed it, regardless of their demographics, would be able to find somebody, at least one person in there that they would be able to personally identify with. So that's why I chose to go the route that I did. And I think the hybrid situation really worked well for myself.
Wonderful, thank you.
So I was just gonna say, self-published myself, and interestingly enough, empowerment is about giving power and authority to others. So not necessarily power and authority to a publishing house. Not that they're the best or the worst or the good or the bad, but just in general, I wanted to hold that power and that authority with all of those decisions, as to kind of where Gabrielle was saying. But I think it also gives you the ability to, move and make those changes that were mentioned. But all in all, you're the bearer of all those decisions. And when it came down to it, for me, I had a distribution platform with about 50,000 collective social media followers. And so I really, that's always going to be the hard part around navigating a book, and what you would really hope for from a publisher would be some sort of boost. But I have that, so it just didn't make a lot of sense for me to be chipping away at some of my intellectual property without having to necessarily get something out of it at the end of the day. So do an assessment of how much power and authority you have before you make a decision on how you're going to go about publishing a book, and then go from there.
That's a really good point. Really do the assessment beforehand to find out which route is best for you. So, Gabrielle, now that you've been through this experience, what words of wisdom do you have to share with our aspiring authors?
Understanding that this is what I said earlier, this is not a destination, this is a journey. And just understand, as you lean into putting your product together, your message together, that you will learn so much along the way, not only from a technical and logistics perspective, but you will learn so much about yourself. I mean, my goodness, if I was faced with this challenge of I'm not good enough every day, I would be lying to you. It was like, it was an invitation to say, I can push through, those outside voices saying your message is not important enough. What makes your story so special? Or, those kind of things, right? And to push through those things and understand that things will come up along the way, and they're coming up along the way as invitations for you to come to terms with and get honest with them. So as much as authoring a book, the end product is a fabulous goal to have. I think, the process or the journey that gets you to that point is just as important as the end product, if you will. And, I really feel like that the more that we're able to lean into those moments, the product actually ends up being a better product. From my own personal experience.
No, it's a good point. Thank you. And Ashley, what words of advice do you have for our aspiring audience? Aspiring authors that are in the audience. That's a lot of A words right in a row, isn't it?
And Ashley also.
Yeah, that's true.
Yes, the world cannot have enough Ashley, so there is that. But no, in all seriousness, I would say, just publishing a book right now in this day and age is very accessible. It doesn't take a whole lot to get an ISBN number, build your content, format your document on PDF, and upload it onto one of the websites who will publish a book for you. So if you're gonna do that, do your homework, do your research, know who your demographic is that you're going to be marketing the book to, and make sure that it's worthwhile. Because after you start spending money to format and proof and copyright and illustrate and all the things that Z was mentioning that he didn't want to have anything to do with. And then you might need a good researcher too, and all of those things. Don't invest the money unless you know you have a delivery model. Make sure you have a delivery model so you don't end up publishing a book and then just selling 200 copies. I've been able to distribute more than 10,000 copies because I had a distribution model, and I built that, and I followed through on my promise to make sure that I was delivering empowerment to as many people as possible. And so if you're going to do that and you're going to go down this journey, make sure that you're in it to win it and that you're committed.
That's a great way to end up in it to win it, right? Because you've got to go into this with a positive attitude, with knowledge, but also with that that big picture of what the impact might be. So, Zaylor, looking back on your experiences, what do you have to share with us today?
I'd say never give up on your message, right? And I'm sure we've all had our share of naysayers in our lives that have said, you're not like Gabrielle was talking about, you're not good enough and all that kind of stuff. I remember hearing, so you're not a good writer, you need to find something else to do. And then I end up being an attorney where all you do is read and write all the time. so don't always listen to that, those old voices that you have in your head, from your past that are saying, you're not good enough, you can't do it. Because I never would have ever expected that I would, be an author, let alone write a history book that's been approved by a state to teach LGBT history there. And so it's just kind of crazy from that perspective. And always know that your story is valid, and your dreams are your story is valid, and it needs to be shared. There's others out there that have the same lived experience as you that could benefit from hearing your voice and benefit from hearing about both your challenges and your successes and everything in between. And so, like Ashley said, very business model. So I'm already learning so much from Ashley here and outside of this session. But not only ensuring that there's going to be a market and everything for it, but making sure that you're true to the message and what you're trying to deliver and get out there. And don't think that there aren't folks, that wouldn't benefit from hearing that message. And just like Ashley said, like her book, it could have easily been targeted just towards transgender folks, but that's not the purpose. And everybody can benefit from empowerment, right? And so don't always just narrowly tailor and focus your story in regards to that, because there's always this broader perspective that you can share with others.
There's so much more that we could talk about today, and it might even be worth a webinar Wednesday, right? To do a really deep dive into how to go to market and make all of these decisions. So I'm voting for that right now. So next, now that you've published your book, our audience is predominantly either published authors or aspiring authors, and they undoubtedly want to know what comes next. So Ashley, what's next?
Lots more promotion, lots more marketing, a book tour. I am close to signing a big, exciting empowerment cruise. So there is that. Because what industry doesn't need more empowerment than the cruise lines right now? So that's pretty exciting. I'm writing another book. So there is that too. Because we have to take things up a notch sometimes, so there might be a little bit of that, but yeah, just to keep spreading the message. You can't just write the book and then think that you're done. You have to keep putting in the work. You have to navigate so many different waters and keep cultivating relationships with the NGLCC network is a great way to market the book, and meeting the LGBT chambers in various cities, and sharing your message.
I have not written a book, but I would imagine that what I hear you saying is that even as you were writing your book, you were already getting ideas and inspired for what comes next, right? And just couldn't fit it into that book. So probably all three of you, the wheels are turning on what comes next. So Gabrielle, what's next for you?
Well, in my diversity, equity, inclusion work, I'm already in front of a lot of corporate clients and other types of clients. So I'm very grateful for that opportunity. But, you know, as a result of my book, I'm actually looking to kind of start showing up and being more visible around my message of authenticity. I mean, I pretty much live and breathe authenticity in a lot of my messaging, whether it's in my work with our trans inclusion training firm or in my personal messaging about empowering others to live their most authentic life. You know, so getting, like Ashley said, being more visible, ramping up. Now that you've got this product in place, how can you leverage this product to start, you know, expanding the net to get the coverage that you're looking to get? And, you know, a lot of, I'm really becoming passionate about showing up in the spaces around gender equity, because a lot of conversations when it comes to gender equity are leaving certain voices out of that conversation. And so from an authenticity perspective, you know, interjecting another aspect of authenticity in those conversations, in those spaces, if you will. And just, you know, there's more and more opportunities coming up, the more visible that, you know, you are and we are. And around our work, I think it's very important to, you know, when you're putting your message together, understanding, you know, how far, what is the shelf life of that message. I think that's very important, understanding what that is going into it. So I'm just kind of stepping into, you know, what those next steps look like. And the beautiful thing about it is I don't necessarily need to know that next step. I just need to keep being visible, keep showing up, and opportunities start, they continue to open up for me.
Well, thank you for bringing the third part of the triangle to the discussion, because we've had a lot of talk around inclusion. We've talked about diversity, and thank you for bringing equity to the table during today's discussion. Zaylor, what's on the horizon for you? What's next?
Well, some of it is a continuation of what was supposed to start in February of 2020. You know, we all know what started in February, and it was supposed to be my book tour. So it's been interesting getting, you know, there were a lot of events that had been planned and had to be postponed or canceled due to the COVID-19 pandemic. So it's been this kind of giddy up kind of a situation. You know, the numbers go down, you get things scheduled, and then the numbers go up. And then, so it's just continuing on with the book tour and getting the word out in regards to that. Part of my effort in regards to our gay history in 50 states was always the advocacy aspect. So we're securing corporate sponsors for the book for each state so that the books can get donated to LGBT nonprofits that are working with queer kids, because that's where the rubber hits the road. These are the folks that really could benefit from having access to the book. And so there's work in regard to that. There's currently 6 states that require the teaching of LGBT history. I think there should be more. So there's also the advocacy angle and aspect of my book and the work that we're doing in regards to supporting those that are engaged in the grassroots efforts from a state-by-state basis to be able to broaden out the teaching of all histories, right? So not just LGBT history, Black history, Native American history, women's history, and the like. And so there was always going to be a series of books for me. So I've already started working on the next one, which is Our Black History in 50 States. And so it'll take a little bit to get that one out, but it's already in the works. So I'm excited about the new project and new prospect as it relates to that as well.
I'm excited too. And I think the last book signing I was at was actually yours. And then, yes, the world started to change. I have Ashley's book, you know, books are available to be shipped, right? And I actually downloaded Gabrielle's. So just as a reminder to everyone, even if you can't get to a live book signing or you're not comfortable going to a bookstore, there are electronic copies, and you can have paper, if you prefer to hold a book in front of you, have a paper copy shipped to you. So a lot of different ways to connect with and enjoy these authors. So our final question as we wrap up, what insights do you have to leave the audience with? What are your thoughts for, again, the audience of aspiring authors and maybe published authors that have had a different approach than you've had? So Gabrielle, would you lead us off?
Yeah, just know that your story does matter. Your story is important. And I'm also a big fan of Brene Brown. And one of the things that I learned from her is that, you know, there's power in personal story, but you have to be very careful in not allowing your personal story to own you. You own it. And so understanding, you know, that your story does matter and it needs to be heard. But in the process of sharing and writing your story, whatever that looks like for you, understand that you're writing it in a way that is basically empowering others to show up in a way that, or to learn something that they don't know that they don't know. So just understand that own your story without it owning you, and your story matters.
Thank you. Zaylor.
Just that visibility is essential and important. I mean, just think about the boon in regards to LGBT content, especially visible LGBT content that there has been out there. I mean, it's just like the Wild West. Everybody wants some LGBT content. Everybody's doing an LGBT history series. Everybody's got some, you know, transgender actors and actresses and you know, folks that are non-gender, non-binary. Awards getting all over the place. I mean, so this is a great time to really jump into the fray. And be part of, you know, that push that we haven't had before, right? We haven't had this many LGBT authors, this much content out there sharing our stories. And it's not just, you know, people, you know, that are characters in the stories, but people that are actually writing the stories, that know the lived experiences and know the nuances and the stories and the challenges that some of us have to go through as it relates to our lives, and bringing that forward. Because the more folks are able to, and this reminds me of Harvey Milk, right, saying everybody should come out and all that kind of stuff, the more people are able to recognize and identify that they have people in their lives that are LGBTQ, that they have the ability to be able to provide that necessary support that everybody needs at some point in their lives. And so that's what I would say is you know, be part of that wild frontier of all of us out there getting our stories out there, so that folks can see that, you know, we're not this, you know, the shrinking minority in the country, and we are much stronger with our allies. And so our allies need to know and hear our stories as well, so that then when they're out there advocating on our behalf in the rooms that we're not in, right, in the rooms that we're not invited to, that they can also make an impact and make a difference by knowing our stories.
Advocacy and allies, a couple more A words for the day. Thank you. Ashley, bring us home. Final thoughts.
Know the obstacle or the objection that you're gonna face on this journey of authorship. If you know what the no is going to be, you can maneuver your content, your data, your heart-driven story to make that impact. And then also consider your topic to not necessarily, you don't have to tell your story. You can tell something or teach someone something, right? Like Z's mentioning, right? The Black history of the 50 states. You can tell something that doesn't have to be LGBTQ plus specific. Don't always think we have to get pigeonholed. You can also tell other stories and still be an LGBTQ plus author and celebrate your authenticity and bring that to the table. But know that you can show up in a lot of different spaces. You don't always have to be in that lane. You can be in any lane, and you can be inspired. You can be empowered to bring it home at any moment. And so definitely do that.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And on behalf of our audience today, who benefited from all of your knowledge, your experience, thank you all very much.
I'm Lorelei Shamayo, co-author of The Sweet Spot, Leveraging Your Talents in Leadership and Life. It's a book about 7 talents for understanding people, what we're good at, what we value, and an explanation for why. Each person typically has 3 talents, and it's great to know our 3 talents because it helps us give ourselves more permission to do what's easy and energizing instead of efforting at what's hard. That's important because what we're naturally good at often is a pathway to feeling more fulfillment and to making bigger and more valuable contributions. It's great to know about all 7 talents because it helps us honor diversity, not take it personally when someone is different than us. It helps us have more neutrality and even acceptance for who people are. And it's also a great path for choosing who to interact with and how to interact with them so that we're all more likely to experience more success. In my own life, the 7 talents have been super helpful for me. It helped me let go of my grandmother's expectations of me and what I do with my life. It helped me change who I date, from attempting to date people like my father to dating people like me who see me and get me, for much more fulfilling relationships. I switched careers from working in science and the legal fields to working with people. I now work for myself. I'm a coach, consultant, and an events producer. And these tools help me know who to partner with and who to hire, so that we're all more likely to experience more success for my business, and then also for all of us. I'm passionate about these archetypes, and I hope to share them with more people.
Hey there, this is Jen T. Grace. My pronouns are she and her, and I am the founder and CEO of Publish Your Purpose. I'm the author of 6 books. My latest book is House on Fire, Finding Resilient Hope and Purpose in the Ashes, and this book came out in the fall of 2020. But instead of spending 60 seconds talking about me and my books, I would rather talk about all of the incredible work that fellow LGBTBE businesses have published through Publish Your Purpose. So here are just a sampling of some of the really amazing books that have been written by your fellow LGBTBE. So if you have not had an opportunity to pick up or engage with any of these authors, I highly encourage you to do so. And for any author who has taken the brave step of putting their story out there and sharing their story as LGBT people, it is our, in so many ways, our job to put forth our stories to help change and impact the world in a more positive space. So I encourage you to go out and support any LGBTQ author. Of course, support your fellow NGLCC authors, and I hope you are enjoying this special programming put on by the NGLCC.
Hey guys, I'm Stace. And I'm Jules. And we are the co-authors of our book. It's a children's book called Rescued by Rico. And we published it last year during COVID. This was our COVID project. And so we're super excited to share it with the LGBT NGLCC.
Yeah. So it's a passion project for us. It was a dog that we rescued from Puerto Rico. And he flew over on a famous country musician's plane, and we got him here, and he was severely malnourished, had heartworms, was really sick, like 12 to 14 years old. But we fell in love with this boy just from a picture, and named him Rico.
For Puerto
Rico, and we just loved on him for 5 months, fattened him back up, and gave him the best 5 months that he could have had after being rescued from, what, 2 or 3 hurricanes?
2 that we know of.
2 hurricanes, yeah.
We would assume it may be more since he was a little bit older, but he actually ended up passing away about 10 days after we got married, so we think that he waited.
Yeah, which was so awesome. But we wrote this book about 2 things. Rescue animals, because we love them, we have them, we love them, and they love us. Actually, they choose us. But then also to talk about the Rainbow Bridge, how hard it is to lose a fur baby of any kind, and just to help kids, but honestly adults kind of process that really hard thing.
Hi, my name is Brandy Lai, and I'm a trans woman, and I work with Publish Your Purpose, a hybrid publishing company that works with diverse business leaders, entrepreneurs, and speakers to help share their story and their message with the rest of the world. I am also the owner of my own business, Best Laid Pens, a ghostwriting and developmental editing company that shares a similar mission. I am also the author of the recently published anthology, The Real Lives of Transgender and Non-Binary Humans, a Publish Your Purpose anthology. The anthology goes into the lived experiences and lives of 12 different contributors, starting from their earliest points of when they realized what trans is without having the vocabulary to say it. It's through the ups and downs of their lives and to where they are today. The thing that binds all these contributors together, despite the fact that they have come from very different backgrounds, from being entrepreneurs, parents, speakers, educators, teachers, is that they all came together to make an impact on their readers' lives and the communities around them. And I know this very well because they shared their experiences with me and trusted me to help broadcast their message and their story to the world. And I was so honored to have my own story featured alongside of them as one of the 12 contributors. So it would mean the world to me if you would give the book a read. You can find it at any of your local bookstores, or you can purchase it on Amazon. every person who reads it, I know, will be impacted and will be seeing the resilience and the hope that all 12 of us bring to the world, and the messages and the stories that we have.
Hi, I'm Naomi Scales.
And I'm Marilyn Jordan. We're the owners of Marfran Cleaning, LLC, out of Houston, Texas.
We are a LGBT, service disabled, and 100% woman-owned company.
We're also the authors of our first published book, From Pain to Love, Our Journey Outside the Rainbow.
This book is a dual memoir that chronicles Marilyn and I's lives together from our early childhood into adulthood.
It also gives you the ups and downs from the development of our relationship, the building of our business, the rearing of the girls, and the various hardships that our relationship brought upon us from being in the South during that time era.
Yes, in this book you will find our story to probably be similar to someone's story that you may have heard, or maybe even your story. But the thing about this book, we cover how we chose to live our lives to try to protect what we thought and what we were brought up to believe that was not acceptable.
The lies that we made up, the things that we created that did not actually exist, all that happened in order for us to protect our circle, our unit, is detailed in the book. And there's a piece of something in here for everybody. It's a lot of stories within a story. It's not your typical love story, but it does encompass a lot of love in telling of the story.
Yes. You can buy this book from Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Target, anywhere you get your books, you can get it. It's on hardback, it's on paperback, it's also on Kindle. But one thing I want to leave you guys with, when you read this book, you'll find something in there that you can relate to, because life is just about a comeback. And this story is about a wonderful comeback. And it's also about acceptance at no matter what age you are.
That's right. And always remember, love always wins.
Thank you.
Hi there, this is David Landis in San Francisco. I'm also known as the Gay Gourmet, a published journalist with the San Francisco Bay Times, which is one of the largest and oldest LGBTQ newspapers in the country. I'm very happy to be writing a food and restaurant column about all things San Francisco, California, and throughout America that are newsworthy to foodies. I've been doing this now for a couple of years, and my URL is www.gaygourmetsf.com. You can follow me on Instagram at gaygourmetsf, and I look forward to hearing ideas of what you think I could cover. So again, I'm really delighted to be a part of the National Gay and Lesbian Chamber of Commerce, and also to be writing The Gay Gourmet for the San Francisco Bay Times.
Wow, what an amazing program today. I'm so inspired by our authors, their stories, their tenacity. I'm so thankful for everyone who has shared and been a part of today's program. My name is Sabrina Kent. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm our Senior Vice President overseeing supplier diversity and programs here at the National LGBT Chamber of Commerce. I am so excited to introduce this next portion of today's program because it is with two people that are very near and dear to my heart. Moderating the fireside chat is Jen T. Grace, a nationally recognized business strategist, speaker, and award-winning author. She's guided by the mantra, change happens in business. And she believes social change happens first in the workplace before spilling over into mainstream society. She's been featured in Forbes, the Huffington Post, the Wall Street Journal, CNBC, and many others. She's also the founder of certified LGBTBE Publish Your Purpose Press and is a published author in her own right. Jen is an incredible ally, friend, supporter, stakeholder, and advocate of the NGLCC. And today she's being joined with a dear friend of mine, Skylar Baylor, who is the first trans athlete to compete in any sport on an NCAA D1 men's team, and the only one to have competed for all 4 years. Skylar is an advocate and a leader. He's been on the Ellen Show. He is now a published author. He just released a book, Obi is Man Enough, and that's why he's here to join us today to chat with Jen about his book and a bit about his journey and perspective as an author. So with that, I will turn it over to you both.
Thank you so much, Sabrina. and welcome to this fireside chat. I am Jen T. Grace. My pronouns are she, her, and I am the founder and CEO of Publish Your Purpose. My business is a certified LGBTBE, a WBE, and a certified B Corp. And I've been involved in NGLCC for over 15 years. And so today I'm excited because I am sitting down with Skylar Baylor, who is the first openly trans athlete to compete on an NCAA Division I men's team. And Skylar, I know that you recently wrote a book, and I want to kind of get to the heart of the matter. Yes, and you have the visual, which is perfect. So can we just start? This is a big question, but to kind of start here of who are you?
So like you said, first openly trans athlete to compete for a Division I men's team. I am a DEI educator, consultant, speaker. I am a life coach. I host several support groups and I facilitate those and workshops. And I also work on Instagram as a I guess, influencer, but educator as well there. So I hold a lot of hats, but all of it is under sort of this umbrella of educator, specifically within trans inclusion. Now, as you said, I'm also an author of the book Obi Is Man Enough. But those are just sort of all labels that describe me in the public sphere. At home, at heart, I'm an active person. I am very detail oriented. I have been an athlete my whole life. I love words, and I would say I'm a communicator and love to talk about things, and I get really invested in small details of topics and stuff. So I don't know where exactly you wanted me to go for the "who are you" question, but those are sort of pieces of who I am.
Yeah, that's perfect. Just to kind of give a little bit of context. And so I think we can all agree that representation matters, right? That's something that's constantly being talked about, and telling your story through your book in particular is certainly a big contribution to that. So I want to kind of start with why. It's kind of a two-part. Why did you write this book, and who is this book written for?
Sure. So I wrote this book because I wanted there to be stories for kids specifically that are about trans folks. And it's not just about his transness, by the way. The book is about Obi, who is a kid, who is a swimmer, who is a sandwich lover, who has a brother, who has friends, who is just trying to get through middle school, who gets his first C on a paper and has to contend with what that means, right? Obi is a whole human who also happens to be transgender. And I wanted to share more of our humanity with the world. I think oftentimes stories about queer and trans people focus on our coming out and focus on our pain. And there's good reason for that. There's a lot of necessity in sharing about our coming out stories and our visibility through the trauma that we might experience. But there's also so much value, I think, in the fact that we are just whole people with whole lives, with much more diversity in our humanity than a lot of people give us credit for. So I wanted that story to be accessible specifically to kids. So that's why it's a middle grade novel starting from 10 years and older, so that kids can also see themselves in books in a way that a lot of people like me didn't get to see themselves as kids. So I think that answers both your questions of why and who it's for.
Yeah. And so I know that it was written in kind of a post-transition lens. So what was your decision? Like, what was the deciding factor to write it from that vantage point?
I think it goes, very similarly to my previous answer, which is that I didn't want to focus just on his transition. I think that trans people's transitions are often very sensationalized. Whenever, for example, I post a picture of a sort of a quote before and after, which is really a during and during. But if I post a picture of me looking, quote unquote, like a woman, and then a photo of me now, people eat it up. It's such a sensationalized, interesting, shocking picture. And people really, I think, focus on that. And I think that's what trans people are. They, Skylar, you were a girl and now you're a man, and wow, that's such a change. The reality is I've always been myself. I just looked different through my presentation of myself. And I didn't want that to be the story that Obi was telling, right? That Obi has always been himself, and he's just trying to figure out how exactly to present that to the world. And so his transition isn't the forefront of the story.
And I feel like it's a safe assumption that going into this entire process of kind of putting the story together, your intentions I feel like I can hear them really clearly, like what your intention behind it was. Is Obi's story, does it mirror your story to a large degree? So was it kind of like a memoir wrapped in this middle grade fiction book?
No, in short, it is not. It is not a memoir, and I chose very specifically not to write a memoir. When I told people that I was writing a book, everybody was like, "Oh my God, I'm so excited to read your memoir."
Yeah.
And I know I did not write a memoir. There are pieces of me, and I would say my heart and soul is poured into this fiction novel, but it is very much a fiction novel. Obi is 13. He comes out when he's 9 and 10. I am 25, and I came out when I was 18 and 19, which might just seem like numbers, but it's a vastly different landscape for how coming out works, in what arenas, what access I might have or might not have had due to my age, right, to gender forming healthcare, et cetera. So Obi is a child, and his story is very different because of that. And, you know, like I said, pieces of me and my heart and my soul are poured into the story, in that Obi is Korean American, for example, and Obi's relationship with his grandparents, his harmony is very much like mine with my grandparents, but everything else is fiction, and I intended to make it that way.
Yeah, that's interesting, and it's just a very different kind of genre altogether, obviously. And so,
Sure.
what was why for the middle grade? Like, what was the kind of reason for choosing that specific age range?
Yeah, so gender identity solidifies around the ages of 3 to 5 years old, which means that as young as 3 to 5, so kindergarten, right, a kid can know who they are. Does that mean every trans kid will find out their gender identity then? No, probably not, especially due to the lack of access that we still have around the world, but they can. So I want us to be having those conversations as soon as kids can be knowing who they are, because we should, right? We should be providing them that access as soon as they are starting to explore those things in their brains, or at least have the ability to do so. I didn't choose to write a picture book because I can't draw pictures. And I wanted it to be a little bit more complex than what a picture book can hold. And there are actually picture books right now about trans youth, and I think that's amazing. And so that's sort of there. Do we always need more? Of course, but there is a growing number of picture books for children. There's also a growing number of adult books and young adult books for young adults and for adults on trans people. But there's this gap with middle grade, right? So in the ages of 10 to 15, there aren't books, as many books at least, for trans youth or about trans youth. And I think that's a really crucial time to access this language and provide that access to language that we currently don't have. So it was a very strategic, very specific decision that I made to do middle grade. And I will also offer that when I was in middle school, that was when gender identity was so apparent to me, but I didn't know what to call it. And had I had this book or another book like it, I think that would have been life-changing for me. And so that's the goal for me, to help to provide that for other kids. And the other side of this is most people who read this book probably aren't going to be transgender. And that's actually, to me, just as important. I want other middle school kids to read this, root for Obi, because the book is designed so that you read it and you're like, gosh, I want Obi to win. I want Obi to be okay. I don't want Obi to be bullied. And as you do that, I hope you can extrapolate that outside of into your life, right? And recognize, oh, I shouldn't bully trans people in my class, right? I should understand and accept trans people around me. And it hopefully can help breed that sort of education that equals then acceptance for people who are not transgender as well.
Yeah, that's so beautiful. I have a middle school son, and I feel like I'm gonna buy this just to be able to have that experience with him, to have him read it as well. And so, if you were to have a magic wand that you could wave, and you're a year from now, and people have been reading it, and children have been reading it, and lives have been changed, what are you hoping to kind of hear from people on the other side of that transformation that they may have had from reading Obi?
I think there's two sides. There's the trans reader, and then there's the non-trans or the cisgender reader. The trans reader, I want them to find hope and courage and resonance within Obi. So whether that means you see yourself in Obi and you think, gosh, like I can do this thing too, because Obi can, right? Or you see, pieces of working through self-identity and just being able to do things that you didn't think you could do, because that's what Obi does throughout the story, and think, gosh, I deserve to exist. I belong here in whatever arena. Maybe it's sports. Maybe it's something else. I belong here too, right? That's the message for trans people. I want them to give them hope and possibility. For cis people, I want them to read it and recognize that trans kids are just kids too, that trans people are just people too, that we deserve the same access to resources, to sports, to healthcare, to the workplace, to relationships, to our friends, our coaches, our teammates, right? We deserve the same kind of love and acceptance from those people around us. And I hope that, again, as you root for Obi, you recognize that and you start to hope for that kind of acceptance for trans people in your life as well.
That's so good. And so, you've obviously recently added author to your list of credentials. So what's next for you?
Next is continue to tell people about OBI. It is to keep doing my workshops and my support groups. I'm going to keep educating on Instagram. I have a couple of exciting projects I'm working on that will be released soon. So if you stay tuned on my Instagram, you'll get to hear about those. Yeah, I'm just going to keep chugging along. I might be applying to go back to school either this cycle or next. But I'm really just trying to take it day by day and do my best to keep educating the way that I am.
It's so amazing. Thank you so much for spending a few minutes with me today to kind of share your story. I'm inspired by it, and I hope that all of the hopes and dreams that you have for young people to be transformed fully comes true.
Thank you so much, Jen. Thanks for having me here.
Hello, I'm Jessica James Purdy. In addition to being the founder and CEO of FIC Human Resource Partners, where we focus on fostering inclusive cultures through policy training and discussion, I'm also a published author. Since 2015, I have published 4 collections of poetry. My first collection, Dive Bars and Empty Glasses, is not an easy book to read because it explores both depression and dependency. But it was an important book for me to publish. It was also published prior to my transition, and so you can find it by searching Dive Bars and Empty Glasses by J. Scott Purdy on Amazon.com. My next collection of poetry, Captured Moments, is much more hopeful. It explores the magic and awe of everyday moments. It really is a progression to great mental health and joy in oneself and one's surroundings. At that time, I was not yet sure how closely I wanted to tie my public and personal personas, and so I published under Jessica James. I also published my 3rd book of poetry, Tantrums and Tempests, under Jessica James as well. Tantrums and Tempests is a collection of social and political commentary poetry. I didn't intend to set out to write that book, but our social and political climate at the time of writing was immensely troubling to me, and I was struggling with my own emotions around all of these things. And so all of that came out in the form of poetry. I am now so comfortable in who I am that I no longer feel the need to hide any portion of myself or to keep myself separate from who I am as a person, an author, and a businesswoman. I hope that if you choose to look for any of these books on Amazon, that you read them and enjoy them.
Hello, my name is David Morse. I am a published author under the name of David R. Morse. I'm a gay man. I've been a member of the NGLCC for many years, and I really benefited from the NGLCC. I went to y'all sent me to Tuck School of Management, and the AT&T sponsored training with Dina Fink was incredible. I've written 3 books. In some ways, it was indirectly a result of having attended these workshops. Anyway, my first book was a marketing book that I republished a couple of years ago in 2020 called Multicultural Intelligence, 8 Make or Break Rules for Marketing to Race, Ethnicity, and Sexual Orientation. Then I got a master's degree in history, and I published my master's thesis. I expanded it. It's a history book called Kissinger and the Yom Kippur War. The book I really want to talk about, the book I'd like to, I guess, enter, is a book that I proudly published with Jen Grace of the NGLCC and her publishing company. It's self-published, but it's Publish Your Purpose. And the book is called An American Legacy: Racism, Nativism, and White Supremacy. It's a history book, but it's really an examination of race and racism in the United States. It's been around since our country's founding with slavery in 1619, and has been part of who we are, and we just don't really talk about it. And with my love of history, I wrote this book that not only looks at the history of African Americans and Asian Americans and Latinos, particularly Mexican Americans, have a horrible history of having been lynched and discriminated against and deported in this country, but also different groups of white folks, Italians that immigrated that were the horrible discrimination, my folks, Jewish folks, and ultimately how we all became white. Anyway, I'm very proud of that book, and I would like to submit it. Other than that, I just want to thank you all for having been such an asset in my career. And I'm very proud to be a member of the NGLCC. And thank you very, very much.
Hello and welcome. My name is Dr. Steve Vaccavelli, pronouns he, him, and his, and I'm the owner and principal of Top Dog Learning Group, also known as the Gay Leadership Dude. Now, I've been in the leadership, development, change management, and diversity inclusion space for quite a while, and over that time, you work with a lot of different leaders, and you start to see patterns at work and patterns that, quite frankly, don't work. And that's actually what led me to my book, Pride Leadership, Strategies for the LGBTQ Blue Leaders Be the King or Queen of Their Jungle. Now, within Pride Leadership, we focus on what I've seen to be the 6 most important leadership competencies or areas to focus on in order to be a rock star leader or maybe see some areas of improvement. These 6 competencies include having authenticity, leadership courage, leveraging empathy, effective communication, building relationships, and shaping culture. Now, within Pride Leadership, we focus on these 6 different areas to be an even more consciously inclusive leader. But that's just the beginning. We really looked at the bigger picture and focus on things that really can help shape your leadership. Things like an audiobook to really help you listen to the concepts being brought on in Pride Leadership. There's a workbook to help you record your ideas, thoughts, and concepts within the book. We've created some virtual keynotes and face-to-face keynotes to dive even deeper in the concepts. And then there's our flagship program, Pride Leadership, the Lions Program, an 8-week deep dive into the concepts within Pride Leadership. And why all this stuff? Well, my not so hidden agenda is to really start an LGBTQ Blue leadership movement. I think that our community has so much potential to be even more awesome and effective than we are within our business, within our workplace, within our communities. And Pride Leadership is my contribution to really help grow our leadership awesomeness just that much better to be even more effective. And we're also doing a free plus shipping event over the course of the next few weeks. Go to http://topdog.click/free ship and you get yours. Just pay for shipping and handling. Again, just to help us fan the flames for that awesome leadership movement. So thanks so much and lead on, rock stars.
Hi, my name is Josh Saterman and I'm a co-founder and CEO of Saterman Connect, an organization that supports other organizations with their evolving corporate culture. Myself, as well as Nettie Nitzberg and Gerald Hutchinson, created this incredible book called Arrive, Drive, Thrive. As a member of NGLCC, we are so proud to share that and share what our book is about. It's about emerging leadership, existing leadership, tackling the challenges that companies throw at them through showing up as an individual, becoming an incredible people leader to raise others up, and supporting the organization in achieving their goals. You arrive, you drive, and you thrive. And in this way, we are empowering your leadership through the stories that we tell, through the tools, models, and concepts we offer. And we are so excited to share that this book will launch in the beginning of November. So we are excited to share that with you. You can see by the smile on my face that this is new for us. It is our first book, and we cannot wait to share that with audiences near and far, companies large and small, supporting the full dimensions of our diversity through our leadership. So thank you to NGLCC for this opportunity. And please search for us at satermanconnect.com so that you can learn so much more about how to support emerging and existing leaders with Arrive, Drive, Thrive.
Hello, my name is Elizabeth Schwartz, she, her, hers pronouns. I'm an attorney and an activist and an LGBTBE and the author of Before I Do, A Legal Guide to Marriage, Gay and Otherwise, published by the New Press. I'm coming to you today from the traditional unceded lands of the Tequesta, Taino, and Seminole peoples, now known as Miami, Florida. When the publisher first asked me to write this book, it was intended to be an educational tool for the LGBTQ+ community, new to the institution of marriage and needing to understand its nuances. As I started writing, I realized that the impetuous behavior that we were seeing among some LGBTQ folks is not the exclusive province of our community. That's why we had to add the otherwise, because cis folks have been jumping into marriages from time immemorial and still are, and also need a comprehensive resource. And I'm really proud of the tool that this book has become for so many. I get great feedback from therapists and lawyers and financial advisors that the information contained in this book really isn't contained in a consolidated and accessible way anywhere else. And we have amazing contributions, we call them cameos, from all kinds of folks, from an expert on veterans benefits, which is super important, tax preparer, financial advisor, all kinds of lawyers, all kinds of folks in the community weighing in on their experiences and their expertise. So please check it out, enjoy it. Even if you're already married, there's still a lot of really good information in there. And as I say, it's the cheapest lawyer's time you'll ever buy. So thanks.
Well, thank you all so much for joining us to celebrate LGBTQ History Month and National Book Month. We are so proud of all the incredibly talented LGBTQ authors and storytellers featured on today's program. As Justin mentioned, authors are such a key part of the history of our community, and we're so glad we got to celebrate you all today. Thank you to all of our speakers and suppliers for sharing your stories, and thank you to all of you for joining us and celebrating them. But don't leave just yet. We will now be moving into our live Meet the Authors Q&A session. Our team has dropped the Zoom link into the chat for that, so please click the link to join, and you'll get to hear from some of the featured authors as well as network. We will begin the session in just a few minutes, so thank you all again for joining us, and we'll see you in a few.